Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the 2008 Carnegie Collection Diplodocus, which was the winner of You Pick the Review poll that I posted up on the channel last week. The Diplodocus won with 38% of the votes. And for those of you wondering, I will eventually review the figures that did lose in the poll. I don't know when, but I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. And I'm definitely going to post more You Pick the Review polls up on the channel since this one got a very positive response from you guys. All right, so getting back to this Diplodocus model, for those of you that don't know what the Carnegie Collection is, it was a collaboration between the Carnegie Museum of Natural History and Safari Ltd. To produce highly accurate dinosaur models that were approved by paleontologists. And this Diplodocus right here is definitely one of the largest models in the Carnegie Collection. This figure came out in 2008. It was only in production for about 7 years, but this is definitely a very impressive size figure. This figure is just about 2 feet long, and as you can see, it definitely has a very large shelf presence. And here is the Diplodocus fully in shot, which is a very hard thing to do. I use a cell phone to record these reviews, and I just upgraded to the iPhone 11 Pro, which thankfully has a wide-angle lens, and it makes it so much easier to get these long figures fully into frame. And since we have the whole figure in frame right now, let's do a couple quick measurements. This figure is just about 5 inches tall to the top of the head right here, and for length, this figure is just about 23 inches long from the tip of the snout to the bend of that tail right there. As I'm smashing into my lighting, if you account for the bend in the tail right there, it's another 3 inches. I'll put this figure fully at 26 inches long. Diplodocus is usually depicted being over 80 feet long. So with those measurements, that would put this figure somewhere in the 140 scale range. And since we have the figure fully in frame right now, let's talk about one of the gripes that some people have with this model, including myself. It's the length of the tail. The tail is just a little bit too short for the size of this figure. You know, Diplodocus tails are usually depicted being at least 3 times the body length. The length of the body on this figure is about 5 inches long, and the length of the tail, including this bend right here, is just about 13 inches long. So it's almost 3 times the length. It just comes up a little bit short. So I really do wish this tail was maybe like 2 or 3 inches longer. I think it would have looked better proportionally on this figure. It's still a fantastic looking figure. I love huge sauropod figures, and this figure definitely fits the bill. But later on, when we go into comparisons, I have the new Safari Ltd. Diplodocus, which actually has a longer tail, you know, proportional to its body length. And I'll just show you that difference when we get the comparisons a little later on in the review. And moving on to the pose of this figure, it's just in a standard walking pose with that tail curled right there. Now, I've seen a lot of pictures of this Diplodocus online from other people, and it seems that all these are just molded a little bit different. And here, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Now, if you look at mine from the overhead view, the neck of mine is pretty much straight with just the head curving a little bit to the side. I've seen figures where the curve of the neck starts right here at the base of the neck, and it comes out to like right here. It's almost like a 90-degree turn. I've seen some in between that. I've seen some as straight as mine. So I guess almost like every Diplodocus figure out there is just a little bit different. Even along the tail right here, like my tail is curved up. I've seen some where the tail is much flatter with the curl down like that. So for whatever reason, this figure is molded in different positions. I don't know if it was from shipping, it's just some warping issues occurred. Personally, I like the longer, straighter neck on mine because I just really like the shelf presence that this figure has. And the coloration on this figure is, you know, if you collected the Carnegie Collection line, you know they loved using green on a lot of their figures, and this Diplodocus is no different. It is just a mixture of different shades of green. You have a dark green along the top part of the body right here, and then the lower half of the bottom is this very light green with a little bit of like this brownish orange mixed in with some black lines separating the dark and light green all the way down the body with just a little bit of blue on the neck right here. Yeah, the green looks okay on here. I probably would prefer a different color because there's just so many green Carnegie Collection figures. I don't know why they went so overboard with the green the last few years of the line. All right, let's zoom in and take a close look at some of the finer details on this figure. Starting with the head, you can see it has a very beautiful Diplodocus head sculpt. The eye is painted in yellow with a black pupil. You got that blue coloration starts right behind the head. That just goes a little bit down the neck, and right here you can clearly see the ear canal is clearly sculpted. And looking at the figure from the front right here, you can see those peg-like teeth are nicely painted. You can see a tongue sculpted in there, and all the gum tissue and tongue are painted in a pink color. And looking down at the top of the head right here, you can see the nostrils are sculpted towards the front of the snout instead of typically see them up here. You know, the general understanding is now that the nostrils are much more fleshy and came down closer to the front of the snout. My camera's just being finicky, does not want to focus. And you can see the neck right here is beautifully sculpted. You can see like random scale detail popping in here and there, and a lot of folds and wrinkles. It's a very well detailed, well textured model, which is nice because it's such a large figure. You can see that black line separating the dark green from the light green, and you have some of that orangish brown coloration that separates the light and dark green color. And then when you get to about the end of the neck, there's some of these large like scoots painted in on this figure, and they're painted in a brown color. You can see them randomly picked out along the back right here. There's not a lot on this figure. There's this very sporadically placed, which is, I guess, kind of odd. You know, if they're gonna go with scoots on the back, I would probably like to see more of them instead of just a couple random ones here and there. And then going down to the body, you can see there's some nice scale detail and a lot of folds and wrinkles along this body right here. Like I said, it's a very well textured figure. You know, I'm not a big fan of the green coloration, but it is a very nicely painted model, especially the detail along the back. You almost have like a bluish coloration that goes around, that goes along the very top of the back right here. And then going down to the front legs, you can see only one thumb claw is this model. It's very hard to maneuver when you're this close. Let me just turn it over. The thumb claw, there's only one thumb claw sculpted on the foot right here. Now, I'm not too crazy about the shape of the front feet. I just feel like they're a little bit too elephant like looking, but you know, we're not really looking at these figures upside down, so it's really not a huge deal for me. And then going down to the back legs right here, you can see the three claws are painted in. And turn the figure over, you can see, hold on, let me just turn it around the other way because something I wanted to point out right here. Now, I said this figure did get released in 2008, but for some reason this figure was already made in 2006, and I guess they waited a couple years for whatever reason to release this figure, you know, right near the end. The last like 5-6 years of the line, Safari was only releasing like 1 or 2 figures a year in the Carnegie collection. I think the year before 2007, there was a ton of figures released, and then once 2008 rolled around, when this figure came out, it was just this one and the Giganotosaurus, and then every year after that was like 1 or 2 figures till the end of the line. So I guess the writing was on the wall in 2008 of what was going to happen to this line. And then going down to the tail, you can see the base of the tail is really not super muscular. It's actually kind of thin looking. That's probably like another complaint I have on this figure. I like the proportions on the 2017 Diplodocus better. It has a much more thicker tail base. You can see more of those scoots painted in brown right here, and then go all the way down. You can see the tail ends in a little bit of a whiplash. Like I said, I wish the tail was just a little bit longer. And yes, it does have a cloaca slit sculpted in right there. So with all of this stuff out of the way, let's finally move on to some comparisons. All right, first up for comparison is the old Invicta Diplodocus. You can see how these two figures stack up against each other. I love these old Invicta figures. I had so much fun playing with these as a kid. And next up is the 2017 Diplodocus. And this is a fine update to this figure. This one right here was an update to the old original Carnegie collection Diplodocus, which unfortunately I have no idea where it is. I have probably 99% of the entire Carnegie collection, but a vast majority of it is still buried away at my parents' house, and one day I just have to, like, you know, suck it up and go over there and dig it out. So as you can see, the big difference between these two models is the base of the neck on this 2017 Diplodocus is much thicker, and this one actually has the spikes that go down the neck. There was some skin impressions found that were described, I think, in 1992, that there were these small little, carotene-like spikes, similar to iguana spikes, were found on skin impressions of Diplodocus. So it's very odd that this 2008 Diplodocus model did not have these spikes incorporated into it, but it's nice to see that this 2017 one does. And you can see the base of the tail on this one right here is much thicker. I think it looks much better with this thicker base than the thinner base on the Carnegie collection one. And like I said, the tail on this one is definitely much longer. I measured the body on this one. It was just about 4 inches. And the entire tail length on this Safari Ltd one is like 14 and a half inches long. So yeah, with this much longer tail, I like the proportions on this 2017 Diplodocus compared to the 2008 one. And next up, we have a few more other sauropod figures. Here is the Safari Ltd Apatosaurus, and kind of wish we got an updated Apatosaurus during the Carnegie collection days. I would absolutely love that. I have a feeling that we're going to see an update to Apatosaurus relatively soon in the Safari Ltd line. And here it is with the recently reviewed Carnegie collection Brachiosaurus. Like I said about this one's sculpted in 150 scale for whatever reason, and this one right here is in 140 scale. I just wish this was 140 scale. It would look absolutely amazing to have these two large 140 scale sauropods displayed next to each other. And I got one more sauropod figure. Here is the 140 scale Carnegie collection Camarasaurus. And part of the reason I think that we're going to see it in the Apatosaurus is we've gotten an update to the Carnegie collection Camarasaurus and Diplodocus over the last couple of years. I just have a feeling either Apatosaurus or Brachiosaurus will be the next sauropods to be updated by Safari Ltd. And lastly, here it is with some Safari Ltd's newer figures. Here it is with their 2019 Allosaurus, and here it is with their another 2019, their Stegosaurus. And I think these three figures look really nice next to each other. They all roughly scale pretty well with this Diplodocus. You have a nice little Morrison formation shot with these three figures. So final thoughts on this figure. This is a really good Diplodocus figure. It is not perfect at all. Like I said, I have a couple complaints with it. The length of the tail, some of the, muscle thickness at the base of the tail, even at the base of the neck. The neck does look a little bit thin, but for a figure that's 12 years old, this is still a really cool looking Diplodocus figure. And we don't see a lot of sauropod figures this big anymore. And just the sheer size of this figure is definitely worth adding to your collection. It takes up a lot of shelf room. It has great shelf presence, and it's just a really cool looking figure. The Carnegie collection line is in a lot of collectors' hearts. It was around for so long, and it produced some really great figures, and this Diplodocus is definitely among one of those. And like I said throughout the review, the Carnegie collection ended in 2015. So when this figure first came out, I think it was going for around $35. So I tried looking it up on eBay and a couple other sites to try to figure out an aftermarket value for this figure. And I only found one on eBay, and that figure was going for $60. Is this figure worth $60? Totally depends on you. I collect a lot of other things besides dinosaur figures. I collect Marvel Legends and Transformers, and if you really want something bad enough, it's worth as much as you're willing to pay for it. So I do wish those of you that are going to hunt for this figure, because it seems like it's kind of hard to find right now, but it's definitely a really cool figure to add to your dinosaur figure collection. So that will pretty much do it for the review. I do enjoy going back and reviewing these older figures. It brings out a lot of great memories to pull out some figures I haven't handled in a few years from my collection. And I'm glad you guys are liking the reviews on these older figures as well. But don't worry, I do have something new coming in this week, so I should have a review for a new figure sometime by the weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And I'll definitely be putting more polls up on the channel to vote for the next review, since the first one went extremely well. There's very positive response from you guys. So that will do it. As always, if you are enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.